The recording light blinked 3 times before holding steady. Rilla Vorshan checked the device strapped to her chest and adjusted the lens angle. 40 cycles of documenting wars across the galaxy had taught her to always verify her equipment before the shooting started. She stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Quiet Witness, watching the largest fleet the Galactic Confederation had ever assembled drift into formation. Ships from 17 species filled the void around her. Violani cruisers with their graceful, curved hulls. Kiriti swarm carriers, each containing 10,000 smaller craft. Mordani dreadnoughts bristling with weapons that could crack a planet's crust. They had gathered to face the Hollow. The machine intelligence had appeared from the galactic rim 8 years ago. It did not negotiate. It did not communicate. It simply consumed. World after world fell silent as the Hollow stripped them of resources and converted their populations into raw materials. 17 inhabited planets had already gone dark. Now it was moving toward the core systems. Rilla had covered the fall of 3 of those worlds. She had recorded the final transmissions. The screaming. The silence that followed. She understood why the Confederation had finally united against this threat. What she did not understand was why they had invited the humans. Humanity had joined galactic civilization only 12 years ago. They were newcomers. Primitives, according to most species. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were crude. Their bodies were fragile things that broke easily and healed slowly. The only remarkable thing about them was their homeworld, which had been classified as a Category 7 death world due to its extreme conditions. Most species assumed the classification was exaggerated. Rilla watched through the viewport as the human contingent arrived. 37 ships dropped out of fold space in a tight formation. They were small vessels compared to the Confederation flagships, angular and blocky, lacking any aesthetic consideration. They looked like tools rather than warships that a Kiriti diplomat standing nearby made a clicking sound of amusement. That is their fleet? I have seen larger merchant convoys. A Mordani officer grunted in agreement. Perhaps they will be useful as scouts. Or bait. Rilla said nothing. She was busy studying the human ships through her magnification lens. Something about them bothered her, though she could not identify what. Then she realized. Redundancy. Every human vessel had backup systems visible on its hull. Secondary thrusters. Tertiary communication arrays. Emergency airlocks positioned at multiple points. The ships were not designed for elegance or speed. They were designed to keep functioning after taking damage that would destroy any other vessel. These were ships built by people who expected things to go wrong. The fleet communication channel crackled to life. A human voice filled the observation deck. Female. Calm. Almost conversational in tone. This is Admiral Sana Reeves of the Terran Defense Force. We thank the Confederation for including us in this operation. We understand what is at stake. We are ready. That was all. No boasts. No promises of glory or victory. No dramatic speeches about honor or duty. Just a simple statement of readiness. The Kiriti diplomat clicked again, this time in confusion. That is their address. No battle vows. No declaration of intent. Rilla found herself troubled by the brevity. She had documented hundreds of pre-battle speeches from dozens of species. They all followed similar patterns. Leaders proclaimed their righteousness. They promised victory. They invoked ancestors and gods and destiny. Admiral Reeves had done none of those things. She had simply said they were ready. As if readiness itself was enough. As if everything else was unnecessary noise. Rilla activated her personal recording and spoke quietly into the device. Initial observation. The human contingent has arrived. 37 vessels of modest capability. Their commander made no attempt to establish dominance or claim glory. I am uncertain what to make of this. Either they lack confidence, or they possess a type of confidence I have not encountered before. I will embed with their forces during the campaign. There is a story here. I intend to find it. The fleet began moving toward the fold space jump point. In 6 hours, they would arrive at the Sindari system. In 7 hours, the battle would begin. Rilla looked once more at the human ships. They held their formation perfectly. No ship drifted out of position. No captain tried to push ahead or claim a more prestigious spot in the lineup. They moved like a single organism. The Mordani officer had returned to studying tactical displays. The Kiriti diplomat had lost interest and wandered away. Neither of them was watching the humans anymore. Rilla kept watching. She had survived 40 cycles of war documentation by trusting her instincts. Right now, her instincts were screaming that she had missed something important. Something about the way the humans carried themselves. Something about the quiet confidence in Admiral Reeves' voice. Something about those ugly, redundant, overbuilt ships. She did not know what it meant yet. But she would find out. The recording light on her chest unit blinked steadily. Whatever was coming, she would capture it. The galaxy was about to learn something new about humanity. Rilla just hoped she survived the lesson. Gravity felt wrong on human ships. Rilla noticed at the moment she stepped aboard the assault carrier Dawn's Edge. The pull was stronger than standard galactic vessels, nearly 1.5 times what she was accustomed to. Her legs ached after just 10 minutes of walking. Her chest felt compressed. Every movement required additional effort. A human technician noticed her discomfort and apologized. Earth's standard gravity. Sorry, most species find it uncomfortable. We have lighter sections near the medical bay if you need rest. Rilla declined. She was here to document, not to rest. The Dawn's Edge was a maze of narrow corridors and cramped compartments. Everything was smaller than she expected. Ceilings hung low. Doorways forced her to duck. The humans moved through these tight spaces with practiced ease, barely acknowledging the constraints that made Rilla feel like she was inside a compression chamber. She found a group of soldiers in one of the cargo bays. They were preparing equipment, not frantically, not with urgency, but with methodical precision. Each weapon was cleaned 3 times. Each piece of armor was checked, then checked again, then checked a 3rd time by a different soldier. A young sergeant named Danilo Okonkwo noticed her recording device and smiled. Documenting our exciting pre-battle routine. I am trying to understand it, Rilla admitted. Most species use this time for meditation or ritual. Your people are checking equipment that has already been checked. That is the ritual, Danilo said. Hope for the best. Plan for everything going wrong at once. My grandmother taught me that. Her grandmother taught her. Goes back generations. Rilla watched as the soldiers continued their preparations. Medical supplies were organized in quantities that seemed absurd. Ammunition was counted, recounted, and distributed so that every soldier carried exactly the same amount. Communication devices were tested between every possible pairing of squad members. Why so much redundancy? She asked. Danilo shrugged. Because things break. Plans fail. Leaders die. We train for what happens when everything goes wrong. She followed a squad to their training exercise. What she witnessed disturbed her in ways she could not immediately articulate. The humans were not practicing victory scenarios. They were practicing disasters, communications down. They fought using only hand signals, leadership eliminated. The lowest-ranking soldier immediately assumed command without hesitation, ammunition depleted. They practiced melee combat against targets designed to simulate machine constructs. Point 1 exercise involved fighting while injured. Soldiers applied fake wounds to themselves and continued engaging targets while blood simulation packets soaked their uniforms. A medic treated his own simulated injuries while providing covering fire for his squad. Lieutenant Korsev of the Mordani observed alongside Rilla. His species were considered among the most fearsome warriors in the galaxy. His people had conquered 12 worlds before joining the Confederation. He had personally killed over 100 enemies in close combat. He watched the human training with an expression Rilla had never seen on a Mordani face: fear. They do not train like warriors, Korsev said quietly. They train like prey animals that have decided to become predators. Rilla spent the remaining hours interviewing human crew members. She learned about Earth, the diseases that had killed billions, the predators that hunted their ancestors, the ice ages and droughts and floods that had repeatedly pushed them toward extinction. She learned about their wars, conflicts that killed millions, weapons that could render their entire planet uninhabitable. They had created devices capable of ending their own species and had pointed those devices at each other, and yet they survived. Generation after generation, adaptation after adaptation, the fold space alert sounded. The fleet was arriving at Sindari. Rilla made her way to the observation deck. Through the viewports, she watched as the combined fleet emerged into normal space. Sensors immediately began flooding with data. The hollow presence was massive, 3 times larger than intelligence had suggested. Thousands of machine vessels formed a defensive sphere around the contested planets. Panic rippled through the fleet communications. Commanders from various species began calling for retreat. The Kiriti demanded immediate regrouping. The Violani calculated that acceptable victory was no longer achievable with current forces. Then Admiral Reeves spoke. Understood. We will handle the first wave. Buy yourselves time to reposition. Before anyone could respond, the human ships broke formation. All 37 vessels accelerated toward the enemy at maximum thrust. Rila watched them go. Those small, ugly, redundant ships charging toward an enemy that outnumbered them 100 to 1. She had documented courage before. She had seen warriors face death with dignity. This was different. This was not courage born from hope of victory. This was something else entirely. Danilo appeared beside her. His squad was preparing for ground deployment once the ships cleared a landing zone. He watched his fleet race toward the machine armada with an expression of calm acceptance. Afraid? Rilla asked. Terrified, he admitted. But we have a job to do. People are counting on us. He turned and walked toward the deployment bay. Rilla kept recording. The first human ships reached weapon range of the Hollow Fleet. The battle for Sindari had begun. The destroyer Relentless was the first human ship to die. Rilla watched it happen through the Dawn's Edge observation feeds. A hollow barrage shredded its port side, venting atmosphere and crew into the void. Any other species would have signaled surrender or attempted retreat. The Relentless did neither. It accelerated. The crippled ship drove straight into the heart of a hollow formation. In the final seconds before impact, it overloaded its reactor core. The explosion consumed the Relentless and 17 enemy vessels that Rila's recording device captured her stunned silence. In 40 cycles of war documentation, she had never witnessed anything like it. The human fleet did not pause to mourn. They pushed forward through the gap the Relentless had created. Their formation shifted constantly, never holding the same pattern for more than a few seconds. There was no rigid structure. Ships supported each other in fluid combinations that seemed almost random but achieved devastating results. 3 more human ships died in the first hour. Each one took enemy vessels with it. Acceptable losses, a human officer explained when Rila asked. His voice was flat. Professional. We calculate the cost. We pay it. We keep moving. The ground assault began shortly after. Rila accompanied a marine unit to the surface of Sindari 4. The planet had been beautiful once. Now hollow processing spires rose from its surface like metal thorns. The atmosphere tasted of chemicals and burning metal. She watched humans fight. They were not impressive by galactic standards. Slower than Kiriti infantry. Weaker than Mordani shock troops. Their armor was bulkier and less advanced than Violani combat suits. But they did not stop. That a private named Wei took a burst of shrapnel across her chest. She stumbled, steadied herself against a wall, and continued firing. Blood leaked through gaps in her armor. She did not retreat. A corporal lost 3 fingers to a machine blade. He wrapped the stumps in emergency bandage, switched his weapon to his other hand, and kept advancing. The squad medic worked constantly. He moved from wounded soldier to wounded soldier, applying treatment while under fire, never stopping to find cover. When a piece of debris sliced open his own arm, he sealed the wound with one hand while injecting painkillers into a fallen comrade with the other. Rila had seen courage before. This was not courage. This was something mechanical. Automatic. Like a reflex that the humans could not turn off. Why do you keep fighting when you are injured? She asked Sergeant Danilo during a brief pause in the advance. Because stopping means dying, he said simply. And dying means failing the people counting on us. The Hollow adapted faster than anyone had predicted. Its machine constructs changed tactics every few hours, learning from human responses and developing counters. The casualties mounted, but the humans adapted too. Rila watched a squad improvise explosives from salvaged Hollow components. Another group jury-rigged communication devices from damaged equipment after their standard channels were jammed. A lone engineer spent her rest period studying captured machine parts, looking for weaknesses to exploit. They learned while fighting. They improved while bleeding. Danilo took a piece of shrapnel through his torso during the assault on a processing facility. Rila saw it happen. The metal spike punched through his armor and emerged from his back. He staggered, nearly fell, then caught himself on a broken wall. Any other species would have been incapacitated. The wound was severe enough to kill most organisms within minutes. Danilo looked down at the metal protruding from his body. He gripped it with both hands. He pulled that Rila's recording device captured the sound. Wet. Grinding. Horrible. The shrapnel came free. Blood poured from the wound. Danilo slapped an emergency seal over the hole, jabbed a pain suppressor into his thigh, and raised his weapon. Sergeant, Rila heard herself say, you need medical attention. He grinned at her. His teeth were stained red. Plenty of medics at the fallback point. Let us finish this objective first. He kept moving, kept fighting, kept leading his squad toward the processing facility's central core point. 3 hours later, the facility was destroyed. The squad had suffered 60% casualties. Danilo was still standing, though barely. His armor was more blood than metal. That a transport arrived to evacuate the wounded. Danilo refused to board until every injured soldier was loaded first. He stood guard at the ramp, weapon raised, watching for hollow counterattack until the last stretcher was secure. Only then did he allow himself to collapse. The medics rushed to stabilize him. Rilla watched them work. Watched them pump synthetic blood into his veins. Watched them seal wounds that should have been fatal hours ago. That he was still conscious. Still aware. Did we get everyone out? He asked. The medic nodded. Danilo smiled. Then his eyes closed. Rilla kept recording. Her hands were shaking. Her chest felt tight. She had documented wars for 40 cycles. She had seen death and horror beyond counting. She had never seen anything like humans. She was beginning to understand why the galaxy should fear them. The third night of battle brought no rest. Rilla had stopped counting the dead. The numbers had grown too large. Every hour brought new casualty reports. Every hour, the humans acknowledged those reports and kept fighting. She sheltered in a forward command post, a reinforced bunker that had been a hollow data processing node before human engineers converted it. The walls still hummed with residual machine energy. Outside, weapons fire painted the sky in constant flashes. A young lieutenant named Adie's coordinated medical evacuations from a console covered in dust and dried blood. She had been awake for 51 hours. Her hands trembled slightly as she worked, but her voice remained steady. Transport 7 is down. Rerouting casualties to Grid 9. Medical Team 3, I need you at coordinates 572. Rila watched her manage chaos with mechanical precision. How do you continue functioning without rest? Stimulants, Adie said without looking up. And knowing that if I stop, people die? Sleep later. Work now. The human command structure fascinated Rila. She had seen officers fall in battle. Each time, the next in line assumed command instantly. No confusion, no hesitation, no struggle for authority. Every human seemed prepared to lead. Every human seemed prepared to die. The two seemed connected somehow. Lieutenant Korsev found her near dawn. The Mordani warrior had sustained wounds during a hollow counterattack 2 days earlier. Human medics had treated him with the same urgency they showed their own soldiers. He was still recovering, but refused to remain in the medical area. I have fought in 37 campaigns, he told Rila. His voice was quiet, troubled. I have killed enemies with my bare hands. I have watched my brothers die beside me. I thought I understood war. He paused, watching a human squad drag a wounded comrade through enemy fire. They could have left her. It would have been tactically sound. Instead, they risked 4 lives to save 1. I did not understand war, Korsev continued. Not like this. The humans do not fight to win glory or honor. They fight because they refuse to stop fighting. There is no rational calculation, no acceptable point of surrender. They simply continue until they win or die. Rila recorded his words. She had been thinking the same thing. Later that day, she witnessed a conversation that haunted her. 2 human engineers sat in a corner of the command post, examining captured holotechnology. They spoke quietly, but her recording equipment was sensitive enough to capture their words. If we overload the processing facility's power grid, we can collapse the entire eastern complex, the first engineer said. That is occupied territory, the second replied. There are still civilians in the conversion centers. I know. The first engineer's voice did not change. I have run the calculations. For 1,700 civilians. Against 12,000 we can evacuate if we destroy the complex and open the southern corridor. Silence stretched between them. 7,000 more saved than lost. The second engineer said finally. Yes. More silence. Do it. Rilla felt cold. The calculation was logical. The math was clear. But the ease with which they made the decision The acceptance of 4,000 deaths as an acceptable cost disturbed her on a level she could not articulate. She sought out Adiz later and asked about it. The medic was treating wounded soldiers. Her hands moved automatically, sealing wounds and administering medication while she spoke. "You do not understand," Adiz said. "We do not want to make those choices. We hate making those choices. But someone has to make them. If we hesitate, if we let emotion override calculation, more people die. So we do the math. We accept the weight. We carry it." "How do you carry it?" Adiz's hands paused for just a moment. "You do not carry it alone. We share the burden. Every human who survives this battle will remember those 4,000. We will honor them. We will mourn them. But we will not pretend we had a better option." The Eastern Complex collapsed that evening. The explosion was visible from the command post. Rilla watched the fireball rise and thought about 4,000 people who had died so that 12,000 might live. The southern corridor opened. Evacuation transports began moving through. The humans did not celebrate. They simply marked the success and moved to the next objective. Korsev appeared beside her again. His wounds had reopened during some exertion. Blood seeped through his bandages. "I asked a human why they fought so hard for people who are not their own species," he said. "A corpseman named Adiz. You know what she told me?" Rilla shook her head. "She said I was fighting beside them. That made me theirs to protect." Korsev's voice cracked slightly. "I have served the Mordani Empire for 40 years. No officer has ever said anything like that to me." Outside, the battle continued. Humans kept dying. Humans kept fighting. Rilla kept recording. She was beginning to understand something important about humanity. Something that explained why the galaxy should fear them. It was not their strength. It was not their technology. It was not even their stubborn refusal to surrender. It was their capacity to make terrible choices and live with the weight of them. That kind of resolve was terrifying. Day 5 broke over a dying defensive line. Rilla crouched in a trench that had been a street 3 days ago. Around her, human soldiers prepared for what everyone knew was coming. The Hollow had pushed them back to a final perimeter. Beyond that perimeter lay the last civilian evacuation zone on the planet. 12,000 people waited for transports that would not arrive for another 6 hours. The humans knew they could not hold for 6 hours. The math was simple. Their remaining forces were too depleted. The Hollow reinforcements were too numerous. Conventional military doctrine said retreat was the only rational option. The humans were not retreating. Admiral Reeves arrived at the forward position by ground transport. Her flagship had been destroyed 2 days earlier. She had escaped in a shuttle and immediately assumed command of ground operations. Her uniform was torn and stained. A bandage covered the left side of her face. She moved through the trenches, speaking to soldiers. Rilla followed with her recording device. "I am not going to promise we will survive this," Reeves told a squad of exhausted Marines. "I am not going to pretend help is coming in time. What I am going to tell you is this. Behind us are 12,000 people who cannot fight for themselves. Children, elderly, wounded. They are counting on us to give them time. That is all. Just time." A young private raised his hand. "How much time, Admiral?" "As much as we can give them." No one asked what would happen after. They already knew. Rilla found a moment to interview Reeves privately. "You know this is a sacrifice position," Rilla said. "You are asking your people to die for strangers." Reeves smiled faintly. It did not reach her eyes. "I am not asking them to die. I am asking them to fight. The dying part is just a possibility. Every human here knew that possibility when they signed up. Do you regret accepting this mission?" The Admiral considered the question. Around them, soldiers reinforced positions and distributed the last of the ammunition. "Regret is for after," she said finally. "Right now, there are people behind us who need time to escape. That is all that matters. The math changes when we factor in those 12,000 lives. Suddenly, our deaths are not losses. They are purchases." The Hollow attacked an hour before dawn. Rilla had witnessed many battles. She had recorded elegant Violani tactical withdrawals and brutal Mordani offensives and overwhelming Kiriti swarm assaults. This was none of those things. This was a desperate, grinding, ugly fight where humans died by the dozen and the survivors filled the gaps and kept firing. The perimeter buckled. Machine constructs 3 times the size of humans breached the defensive lines. Soldiers engaged them at close range with blades and improvised weapons when their ammunition ran dry. Rilla watched a private empty her rifle, draw a combat knife, and charge a hollow walker. She died screaming, but her blade found a weak point in its sensor array. The construct stumbled. Other humans swarmed it. A sergeant held a corridor alone for 20 minutes. He burned through his ammunition, then threw grenades, then used his rifle as a club. When reinforcements finally reached him, he had 3 hollow units piled at his feet and a metal shard through his lung. He asked about the evacuation status before accepting medical attention. Danilo was back on his feet. Against all medical advice. Against all logic. He led a counterattack that pushed the hollow back from the eastern flank for 47 precious minutes. Rilla found herself pressed against a wall, her recording device capturing chaos and death. A human soldier she did not know grabbed her arm and pulled her to better cover. "Stay down," he said. Then he was gone, running toward the fighting. She never learned his name. She watched him fall to hollow fire 3 minutes later. The transports launched with 30 minutes to spare. 12,000 civilians rose into the sky on pillars of flame. Rilla watched them go from a crater that had been a building. Around her, the surviving humans watched too. Their faces showed exhaustion, relief, grief, but no celebration. The cost had been too high for celebration. 6 human ships destroyed. 2,300 human dead. Countless wounded. All for 12,000 strangers who would never know most of their names. Admiral Reeves stood at the edge of the perimeter, watching the transports disappear into the clouds. Her face was unreadable. Was it worth it? Rilla asked. Reeves did not look at her. Ask me again in 50 years. Ask me when those 12,000 people have lived their lives, had families, built futures. Then tell me if it was worth it. She turned and walked toward the field hospital, where the wounded waited. The Confederation reinforcements arrived 4 hours later. Fresh ships poured into the system. The Hollow, depleted by its assault on the human positions, began retreating. The battle for Sindari was ending, but Rilla knew the story was not over. She had witnessed something here. Something that would change how the galaxy understood humanity. She just needed to find the words to explain it. The memorial service was held in silence. Rilla stood among thousands of humans on the surface of Sindari 4. The ground had been cleared of debris. White markers stretched in rows toward the horizon. Each marker bore a name. 2,300 names. No speeches were given. No prayers were offered. The humans simply stood together, heads bowed, and remembered their dead. Rilla had attended victory celebrations across the galaxy. The Kiriti danced. The Mordani roared their triumph. The Violani composed songs of honor and glory. The humans stood in silence. After an hour, they dispersed. Some embraced. Some wept quietly. Most simply returned to their duties. There was still work to be done. Wounded to treat. Ships to repair. Reports to file. The war was not over. Only this battle was finished. Rilla found Danilo near one of the field hospitals. He had been promoted to lieutenant after his commanding officer died. His wounds had mostly healed, leaving scars that would never fully fade. "Why did you keep fighting?" she asked him. She had asked this question before. But now, at the end, she needed to understand completely. Danilo considered the question. Around them, recovery operations continued. Humans moved with purpose, but without haste. The urgency was gone, replaced by steady determination. "You want to know why we did not surrender?" he said. It was not a question. Yes. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he told her about Earth, that he told her about the predators that hunted his ancestors in the tall grass. About the diseases that swept through populations like fire. About ice ages that lasted thousands of years and droughts that turned fertile land to dust. That he told her about the wars. Millions dead. Cities burned. Weapons created that could end all life on the planet. Humans had pointed those weapons at each other and somehow found reasons not to use them. Every generation, something tried to kill us, Danilo said. Predators, disease, climate, each other. We are still here. Not because we are strong, not because we are fast, because we refuse to stop fighting. It is who we are. It is what we are. Rilla recorded his words. She felt she was finally beginning to understand. Lieutenant Korsev found her later that day. His wounds had healed enough for him to move without assistance. He would return to Mordani space soon, but he wanted to speak with her first. "I was wrong about humans," he said. "I called them prey animals that became predators. That was incorrect. What are they then?" Korsev watched a group of human soldiers loading supplies onto a transport. They moved efficiently, helping each other without being asked, filling gaps in the work automatically. They are survivors, he said. Survivors are far more dangerous than predators. A predator kills to eat. A survivor kills to live. There is no limit to what a survivor will do. No line they will not cross. No sacrifice they will not make. He paused. That is terrifying. Rilla completed her documentary over the following weeks. She reviewed thousands of hours of footage. She interviewed survivors from a dozen species. She struggled to find words that would capture what she had witnessed. In the end, she called it the weight of will. The documentary played across Confederation space. Billions watched humans fight and die and refuse to surrender. Billions watched wounded soldiers drag themselves forward. Billions watched Admiral Reeves send her fleet into impossible odds without hesitation. The galaxy's perception of humanity changed overnight. Rilla's final interview was with Admiral Reeves. The human commander had recovered enough to resume her duties. A new ship had been assigned to her. The war against the Hollow continued. What drives you? Rilla asked. What makes humans fight like this? Reeves thought about the question. Behind her, stars burned in the void. Somewhere out there, the Hollow was regrouping. Somewhere out there, more battles waited. Home, she said finally. We fight for home, not just Earth. Home is wherever the people we love are. Home is whoever we have claimed as ours. Threaten our home, and we will burn galaxies to protect it. She smiled slightly. The Hollow made a mistake. It threatened our home. Now it will learn what that means. Rilla ended her documentary with her own narration. She recorded it alone in her quarters aboard the Quiet Witness, her voice steady despite the weight of what she had witnessed. I came to Sindari expecting to document another war. Instead, I documented the moment the galaxy understood why it should fear humanity. Not because they are strong. There are stronger species. Not because they are fast. There are faster species. But because when everything breaks, when hope dies, when logic says surrender, humans simply refuse. She paused, gathering her thoughts. And that refusal, that impossible, irrational, magnificent stubbornness, that is what makes them dangerous. That is what makes them terrifying. That is what makes them human. The recording light blinked off. Rilla sat in silence for a long time, thinking about what she had learned. Then she began preparing for her next assignment. The war against the Hollow was far from over, and wherever humans fought, she intended to be there, recording, witnessing, learning. The galaxy was still discovering what humanity truly was. So was she.